Okay. Okay. Who hates DevOps?
So that's part of it.
It's getting a little bit overcomplicated.
I'm just trying to understand the room.
Question I was going to ask you earlier.
Yeah.
So, front door. Are you still acquainted? Is it Quentin Police? Sure.
Yeah.
Why global? Why front door not?
The front doors. Where?
Sorry for the people remotely. We just have had a technical issue.
Depending on the how much and how you're using it.
Okay, and that's a very good reason.
It's very cheap. Very cheap.
Well, yeah, I was
Including the bells and whistles and the WAF.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Wish they priced it differently, but yeah, it's still pretty cheap. If you think about it, you can get 25 web apps behind the front door instance. So that $500 then gets sort of, spread out across your apps. And then that stamp fee is only applied once. So when you add more, it's not as bad. It's still very bad.
have 25 just to make it worthwhile. We've only got one or two.
Yeah. Front door classic is very, I like it for reasons. But yeah. Very much.
Everything turned off. That way, at least I can sort of monitor some of the chat.
Oh, right.
And also get a recording of it.
No, you can fix this in December.
It's on.
It's not for regulars.
No, I think it's just in American format.
As in like,
Oh,
maybe it's like this.
Probably, most likely.
Well,
So, oh yeah, it is 12, but it's 11.
yesterday. Yeah. Because I was like,
All righty. I think we're back in business. Yes, so sorry about that. But yes, API and audit logging. Oh, okay, sorry. Let's sort that one out as well. Right. Cool. Hopefully that should be sorted out in a sec. Yeah, so we were talking about APIM audit logging. So yeah, it's basically there. There's probably not too much to go into apart from, again, gives you some additional information that you didn't have before in the logs, which is pretty nice. Azure Bastion Premium. So this is just a new SKU. This new SKU then has some additional capabilities, such as recording sessions. So particularly if you've got highly sensitive workloads and you need to work out, well, what's happening through these sessions, then this might be right for you. AKS metadata and filtering. So again, this just provides some additional options on the logs that then allows you to then search and build dashboards and do monitoring on. VM hibernation. So this is generally available. So it was in preview for a little while. So this effectively allows you to hibernate virtual machines in Azure. And there is some additional benefits for the fact that you're not running the compute in that process. from a cost perspective. Log Analytics Simple Mode. So this is pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about this one because previously when you were using Log Analytics, which you may have had to in Azure previously, it was very much a query-driven interface where you sort of needed to know the language. This allows you to then more easily get access to data without necessarily knowing the ins and outs, and then learn as you need to later. AKS Portal Context Observability. So again, this just provides some additional information that's right in front of your face. So it makes it easier to troubleshoot if you're running AKS workloads. Log Analytics cross-region replication. Again, this is a pretty exciting one, I think, for a lot of customers that then have to do monitoring across multiple Azure regions. So basically now you can go ahead and replicate between regions the data. So obviously there are some additional costs with that, but then if you do have to fall over to DR scenario, you also then have access to logs. Azure Copilot integration. So this is just additional integration in existing products. So Azure Firewall, so doing some stuff around IDPS signatures and additional insight, as well as things like the WAF rules. So pretty cool there. SQL, again, more Copilot integration for you. Again, you get quite a fair bit of additional stuff here, again, including helping, explain queries and that type of stuff. So really, if you have questions, you can start to then interrogate Copilot around SQL. Go ahead, JK.
Is the Copilot public here already for public use?
I think this is a preview, although Damien didn't flag it either way, but I'm pretty sure it's preview.
Sorry, my bad.
Application Gateway V2 Basic. So really this is just Application Gateway with some of the features pulled out, but obviously at a much cheaper price. So again, if you have some really basic scenarios, this might be an option. And certainly for entry-level customers, then that's really where it's targeted at. Similar to what we did with Azure Firewall, we released the basic SKU for small customers. Azure Front Door server variable in enrichment, I think that's meant to be, but basically this is just like additional ability to go ahead and put variables in to different parts of the rule set, which can be really helpful if you're trying to do manipulation of URLs to backends and so forth. There's also some support around sensitive data protection. And so this is really particularly when you've got like queries going through Front Door, so web requests, some of that data, there might be some things that are sensitive, such in URLs. So you can actually go ahead and sanitize some of that out of the actual like log data. So you don't necessarily store it in your monitoring data, which is pretty cool. Data API Builder. So this is pretty cool. It'll be interesting to sort of see what customers get out of it and things like that. But really, essentially, in a nutshell, this is the ability to take a database and then basically automate creating an API that sits in front of it that then exposes that data. And there's a number of different things you can do with it. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what people do, customers do with it. It's been in development for quite a few years, I think 3 or 4 years to get to this point. So it's pretty cool that it's out now. SQL standby replica. So this is more for the scenarios whereby you want to do SQL database replication between regions and things like that. Previously, when you ran it in a secondary region, then you'd pay for the compute cost there. Now, this sort of gives you a cheaper option to do the replication, but without it being running. And then you can when you fail over, then you can start it up. If you don't necessarily need it active in both places or active passive, then this gives you a way to do that more from a storage layer. Container app support function support for container apps is really the way that you can host Azure functions within container apps in a fairly seamless way, which is pretty cool. And then also some additional flexibility around cost and consumption, which again, always good. In terms of resources, we have the standard resources. So there's a Slack team, a YouTube channel. So tonight's presentation, as well as the full catalog, are all up there to rewatch at your leisure. There's also some links to some partners here, some blogs from Microsoft and some other partners or people in the community. And tonight's presentation, without further ado, is Damien Berry. He is a principal solution architect with Queensland Police. He has loads of experience, and tonight he'll be delivering a talk around hopefully Blazor and some Front Door and some App Service. So without further ado, let's give our hands together for Bernie. And over to you.
Thank you very much, Bernie. All right, let me swap slides. We'll get some internet, so we might need some internets. And is that still projecting?
It is. It is.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll see how this goes. So let me know if that stops. All right, okay, so I did a bit of a poll before, trying to figure out who's here for what reason. We're trying to get some Blazor out the front door. Secretly, this is a bit of a DevOps indoctrination. So if you don't like DevOps, that's pretty bad news for you. But that's okay by me. So we heard all about that. So getting some Blazor out the front door. Like, let's just keep it simple, okay? So if you've got an organization that's doing software development, this is what you need to do. If you can't build a monolith, don't try and go for microservices. Just don't stop. And just try and keep it simple. Number one thing for simplicity is automation. You can't get your automation going, it's not going to be simple for long. It might be simple while you build it, but not for long. So let's talk about the app. So yeah, you might know which one I like already, but it's kind of been a bit of a giveaway on the slide title. There's lots of valid technologies, okay? Just because I like Blazor doesn't mean that's the only one. It probably should be, but it really doesn't. So React's still pretty good. I don't know about Angular anymore. Maybe not. There's a bunch of others and there's a bunch of new stuff coming out. But then, like me, if you're into .NET, C#, if you like the JavaScript stuff, I'm sorry for you. But if you like C#, Blazor is just a no-brainer. It's really, really simple. It makes that experience really easy to understand. And I know there's a lot of people here from an infrastructure background or not necessarily a developer background. So if you haven't seen Blazor code, I've got some here just to show you. You may see some later on in the presentation. For those of you that are allergic to code, I apologize, but this is all you get. Here's an example of, oh, sorry, mouse. Just how simple it can be. Like if you're building a Blazor page. Yeah, it's reality. It's a bit harder than that, but it can be that simple. So in this presentation tonight, what I've got is just a standard template. I put in some APIs because we want to see some data, because this is all about DevOps. It's all about environments. It's all about information that the application can, gather from the environments. And well, the other screen over here is, well, you're going to have that in every Blazor app. So might as well see it now.
But Damien, is your HTML correct? I thought there needed to be a body element to be compliant.
Yeah, so that's a good pickup, right? And that's one of the really good things of Blazor is that Blazor is a someone help me. JK is going to help me here. Component-driven application, and it works by nesting components. So I don't actually need to specify the full HTML, and I get really good reuse through that componentization of the language, and that allows me to keep my code simple. And this is something where you struggle with React. React's really hard. React Redux, things get complicated. Angular, it's just a gigantic mess. But a lot of these lessons from these languages, these JavaScript-based languages, they've ported into .NET, and they've really focused on trying to build this reusable component-focused language. And that, as you picked up, Ray, that's the remainder of the application, or the remainder of the page will be built up around my bit of code there. And that's one of the reasons why Blazor is so simple. It's just easy to use. I love it. I'm a massive fan. Apologies for all the people who like JavaScript.
It's basically looking at React, Angular, and Razor pages, and how to make Razor as good as possible with all of the knowledge that we know about all of the other JavaScript frameworks.
Because that's where the Blazor comes from, was Razor, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it still has some limitations from Razor, but like almost everything that you can do in React, you should be able to do in Blazor. It's a little bit closer to React than Angular in that regard.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that super smart people have done. I think I've just put a plug in there for the Octane framework. So .NET Nuke guys, they've built a framework called Octane. Definitely worth checking out. They're a lot smarter than me. But what they've been able to do is they've been able to build a micro front end solution that allows you to have a composition at runtime of front ends, which is a really cool thing when you think about it. It's like you've got a running application and you're adding front end experiences into that running application. Is it still recording?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Anyway, so that's the web stack, right? So now that we got that out of the way, and we can have a conversation about Blazor and that sort of stuff, but I'm going to move a little bit more into Azure now. So from a hosting perspective, if I've got a web application and even a Blazor application, I could host a Blazor application on a static web apps. I never would. I hate that technology, but that's just my personal opinion. Doesn't really mean you can't, right? And I have done that in the past, but every time I build an application, normally I've got APIs, or normally I've got back-end processing. So I kind of like move that away. There is APIs for the static web apps, and what you saw Bernie present today with that fancy, what's it called again? I can't remember.
Container apps.
No, that
Functions.
magic set of REST APIs and graph APIs.
The data API.
Data API thing. So static web apps has that built into it if you want to take advantage of it. I still say don't. Just like, it's not worth the pain. Stick to app service. Sorry, I've given my hand away already. So app service is kind of like the middle of the road, right? So if you've got an application, most applications are going to be app services fine. Now, if you've got a super complicated environment, you want to do some fancy stuff, sorry, one or the other, or both. You could just want to use the technology. You may not need to use the technology, but microservices is definitely the flavor of the month. And lots of people want to do microservices. They probably don't need to. It probably doesn't add business value. It's probably just cool. Well, then container apps is a really good option, right? So you can get limited orchestration in container apps. If you want even more orchestration and you want even more control of that, maybe you want to go to AKS, something like that. You really have to have a good need. 9 times out of 10, the places I go to, places I see what they're doing, they don't need to use AKS, but they are. Well, often they're not even using AKS. They've spun up Kubernetes by themselves, and that's even harder. But AKS makes it a lot easier. So if you really want Kubernetes, get somebody to do the work for you, because it's not fun doing all that infrastructure on your own team. You probably don't need Kubernetes. Container apps is probably all you need if you want to build microservices. I'm saying probably. There's always those use case, edge cases. Makes a lot of sense. But if you've just got a simple app, a couple of simple apps, portfolio of simple apps, you're not going to need it. Container apps is pretty good for limited orchestration. 9 times out of 10, app service. If you can't start with app service, probably something a bit wrong. But rethink your choice if you're not choosing app service, is what I'm trying to say. All right, you can do everything. I've just said that. Okay, so we've got a bit of DevOps here. So this is kind of what I see a lot. It's okay. So if someone could define it, that'd be great. What is DevOps? And I am going. So I think who here does DevOps? One, two, there's a few. Someone's pointing to somebody else. That's okay. Who here gets DevOps done for them?
Probably more so.
Oh, that's lazy. Who would like to? Yeah, who would like to do that? Who hears about DevOps and goes, it's kind of complicated. We want to really do DevOps, but it's a bit hard. We're just going to do it manually. Not as many. Okay. So for all the people who are DevOps experts here, sorry, I'm going to teach you how to suck eggs, but that's just what you get. I'm sorry. So what we might do, let's have a look at some DevOps. Who here wants to build some DevOps right now? Okay, let's do it. We're all good. Who here does not want to see DevOps being done? Nobody hates it that much. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good, because I was. Oh. Okay. What has happened here?
Paint yourself DevOps in action.
This is DevOps, yeah. Do you like DevOps?
Yeah, the lights go out.
Yeah, maybe just done.
This is DevOps, actually. It's exactly like this. There's that sort of presenting.
Yeah, for good ears, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Sorry about that. So what we've got, let's start. If I can find my mouse. Here. All right, cool. What we've got an application, right? So this is a standard Blazor application. It's got the solution there. It's got the client. So those of you who are learning Blazor, basically we've got a PWA client sitting in here, and it's got a bunch of stuff in there, and that's going to be put into this server-side app. And we're going to do some .NET Core hosted Blazor. So what does that mean? Well, it means I'm really being cheeky because I hate cores. I don't host my APIs in the same project because it just makes it easy. I don't need to do any cores, right? Because if all the APIs are in the same place the Blazor's coming out of, great. Things are really simple. And I would recommend that unless you have some reason not to, and there's valid reasons. So anyway, this is just a standard .NET app. And press the right buttons. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we've got pipelines under Azure DevOps. Who here likes YAML?
Looks like we like it.
Here's another marker.
Who here hates YAML? Yeah, more haters than likers. All right, I'm with you guys. I hate YAML too. It's really painful. So I'm going to go new pipeline. And then see this? Classic editor. Always choose this button because the alternative is terrible. So we've got Azure DevOps Git repo. We're coming from presentation. We're going to go continue. Great. It's a .NET app. So what do we need first? We can come in here, scroll down, .NET Core. That looks pretty good. Let's apply that. If you're using .NET Framework, shit out of luck. Just move on. It's no good. It's no good at all. Choose your agent. And I'm good with that. So it's dropped in all these tasks. So it's going to restore it. It's going to build. It's going to run all my tests. And you'll notice that I've got so many tests. Just like most people that are doing development, they've got 0 tests. Except I did work for this company in India where they created all the tests and removed the bit of line that said this is uncertain or whatever it was. So they said, yeah, that's a test. It's like, 3,000 of those empty tests. They ran every time and 100% pass rate. It was really good. And we're going to publish it. And we're going to publish that artifact. We'll give it a name. So this is like in person. Demo. Who here is happy with that? Who here is not happy with that? Does that seem too hard? Probably going to work. That's really all you need to do, guys. That's going to give you a build. That's half your DevOps done, right? Not bad. Who finds that hard? Too many steps? It's no excuse. Next time I come to your business, if you don't have DevOps, I'm not going to be happy. All right. So that job, I'm just stalling, by the way. That job's going to run. It's going to take a little bit of time. It kind of does need to run before I can do the next step. What I could do is for the next step, I'll just build it. I'll just use a previous pipeline, right? So just to speed this up a little bit, but you can see this is running, not a problem. Next step, releases. Rightio. Let's do some releases. So we can make a new folder here. We can go call this it's my in-person folder. Great. Now I've got that. Now I can add in a new release pipeline. So we're going to release an application into Azure. So how hard is that? Well, that's about as hard as it needs to be. You could argue, and hang on, let's get an artifact first. So it's a build artifact we're looking for. It's from this project. We've got one we've done before. We'll add that artifact in. The release in here, we do need to select the subscription we're going to deploy into. My phone's struggling. Okay. Oh, and let's find an app service to deploy it on. Oh, what's the worst that could happen? Actually, that may be pretty bad.
That service may not work again.
That app service may not work again. Exactly right. Well, it means we're just going to have to redeploy later on. I'll tell you what we'll do. Come over here. We might remove this, and we might add in number 4. So at least we're deploying the right thing to the right app service. So what have we not done here? Does anyone know?
The environment variables.
Environment variables, very correct. Yes, there's no environment variables. That could be a problem.
We don't have staging and stuff.
potentially we may not have staging. So with a Blazor client, a WASM-based Blazor app, we do need to choose what we're going to deploy into the app service. So we're going to deploy not the client, but the actual API hosting runtime that has the client baked into it as well. There you go. That's probably it. So some of the other things that you can do here. So you can do an app service stop. You can do an app service start. You can wrap those tasks around here. You might have some other tasks that you may need to do. This is still going to work just fine. Not a problem. But you might want to do some of those other things. So we'll just save that. We can run that release. Hopefully that doesn't wreck my demo too bad. So we can have that going in the background. But there you go. That's it. JK said a really good thing, environment variables. If you do need to think about environment variables. Now, the one I've deployed actually does have environment variables, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. But you'll be very interested to see we've got no environment variables. We've got no library variables. So just keep that in mind, and we'll just pick that up and keep going. All right, so we've seen how to do a build, seen how to do, oh, I didn't show you that one. Do you want to see the Azure bit? How about we have a look at the Azure bit? I showed you how to do a build, and I showed you how to do a release. I didn't show you how to deploy the Azure work. So let's build a pipeline for that. So let's release our infrastructure. So new release pipeline. I am going to start with a repo as an artifact. Going to go to my presentation. Going to go to main. I'm going to add that. All right. So that repo, I will show you that now. In demo 1, under the infrastructure, so we've got the application. Under the infrastructure, we got some Bicep. So let's have a look at some Bicep. We're just going to deploy a web application. So this is kind of where you start. And how do you get that, you ask, right? So how do I get my Bicep? Well, where I would suggest you start, multiple places. Now, you may have Copilot integrated into your development environment. That's one path. Open API, that's another path. Copilot, it's another path. Or you could just do it the hard way and the old school way. So you choose your poison. Let me start here. So I've got a README that I've prepared earlier. So I've written a bit of words there. And this is kind of up to you guys, you know. You can either start coding and have Copilot fix your code and suggest it. You can do it the old school way. You can do it this way. No wrong answers, unfortunately. What do you reckon about that, guys? Does that look all right? Who thinks that'll work?
One seems to be right.
Yeah.
Here's a simple app.
It's a simple app. It's a very simple app. If you can't get that right, we're in a lot of trouble. Anyway, so in demo 1, it's pretty much the same as this. So let's take demo 1. Let's take the bicep from that. Let's put it in our release pipeline. So here we're going to do harm. It's going to make me have to type. Oh, sorry. I am doing this all wrong. Let's go empty first. I'll come in here. And go. Normally it's pretty close down here. I don't have to scroll too far. That'll do. One of those. Come in here. I've got a connection set up. Let's deploy it there. And just so that you can see. Get this one over here. This is my Azure environment. You can see nothing under my nothing under my hat. All right, so we're going to target that there. Let's deploy it into Australia East. Let's choose our template. And in a production scenario, probably not going to have demo 1, 2, 3, and 4. Things might be more complicated. You may have some template parameters. We'll get into that a little bit later.
PS will test as well in the pipeline.
We're not going to do any testing. I think that's been banned. Nobody does that. I think we've given up on testers. And let's just create the release. So that is not going to take too long. And that's it. So we have done, okay, with the exception of testing, we have done all the DevOps that's required. Let's be real. No one does testing anyway, so that's fine. And most people just say they do. They don't really do the proper unit tests. But if you are going to get into testing, unit tests, absolutely. My preference, XUnit. SpecFlow is a really good technology. If you're thinking about testing, you want to get that behavior-driven development, and you want to be able to test it from the UI all the way down. But don't go crazy. If you do too many SpecFlow tests, your life's going to be hell. So you try and figure out what the right amount of tests is, and just think of the tip of the pyramid. That's the sort of SpecFlow tests you want. The rest is unit testing. All right, so that's going to keep going. I'm going to continue with our talk. So let's just imagine that that works.
And you had a variable on the URL, variable name, azurewebsites.net. Running it twice, was that going to fail in that the registration, or was it because your subscription was associated to it and the same location, magic would happen still? It's a variable name somewhere for websites, not things towards the bottom.
So that was just an output parameter.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, no, sorry.
I'm just,
I thought that was the registration.
that's going to come out at the bottom.
Yeah, that's right. No, so I misread.
So
It was the visioning.
I didn't choose to do that. That's what Copilot gave me.
right.
Is it good? Yeah, it's okay. Is it bad? Yeah, it's not really bad. Personally, I avoid output parameters wherever possible. I don't like them. Potentially some auditing maybe. Fine, you can get away without getting too far in it. And it really does come back to, if you're building Bicep, you want to build up that Bicep library as simple as possible. Every organization has different needs, and that'll change how you write your Bicep library and customize it for your organization. Yeah, everyone's different. Yeah.
Is Bicep, if you compare Bicep to Terraform, which one do you prefer?
The classic question, right? Like everybody asks that question.
Yeah.
And it's just like in everything, there's 1,000 right answers. Well, in this case, there's only 2. But my personal preference, Bicep all the way. Now, why do I say that? So Terraform's a great technology, and it does allow you to deploy to multiple clouds. That's really good. I like to use some of the more progressive features in Azure. When I write Terraform code and I'm trying to get those progressive things from Terraform, I find I'm writing that code anyway in ARM or something horrible like that. So it's really not helping me that much. Some of the things you could potentially wrap up in Terraform and away you go. You have to ask the question, what are the trade-offs for me? If you're targeting AWS and Azure at the same time, it may be a valid choice to use Terraform. Like, that's 100% agree with that. If you're building your applications and you want to be flexible so that you can go to AWS or GCP later down the track, I'd strongly recommend Bicep, because you just get a closer experience to what Azure's doing. When you're building your apps and you're architecting your solution, make sure you're choosing technologies that allow you to be flexible in moving in the future. That's the key. It's like what you're building needs to be able to move. If you're locking in on certain products, it may not be good for you. So focus more on the app design rather than the infrastructure, because this will run in AWS, not a problem. The other thing, okay, this is an Azure talk. The other thing that might be interesting is Arc, right? So looking at Azure Arc, that allows you to use AWS or your own on-premise infrastructure and deploy app service and that sort of stuff to it. So that's another way that you could leverage multiple clouds, is using Azure Arc and deploying Arc as the foundation and then running your PaaS services on Arc. Jacket.
Yeah, in my experience, when clients want to switch from one cloud to another, it's usually not just the cloud that is the issue. It's also the issue with the app and other things. And you end up changing the app anyways, changing the infrastructure, the DevOps and all of that stuff. So making it future-proof to jump between clouds has so far not been particularly useful. I haven't seen many cases where that was useful.
Yeah, but Arc would allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Other problems.
If you compare the Bicep to ARM,
yeah.
So why ARM works fine, right? Why?
No, that's my mindset, and it was my mindset until Bernie set me straight. And so many years, Bernie's going, you need to look at Bicep. You need to look at Bicep. And I'm going, my arm does everything I need. It's fine. It's perfect. It's great. Eventually, I had a look at Bicep and I went, oh my God, why didn't you tell me, Bernie? You should have told me before. This is amazing. So never use ARM ever again. That's my ARM Bicep story. It's like Bernie didn't tell me. He told me like every month.
What things cannot be done in ARM that you can do in Bicep?
Yeah, let's get to that. And yeah, good question. Demo 3, I'm going to show you exactly that. Hold on for demo 3. So anyway, so where did we get to? We've now deployed our infrastructure. It's actually, we bought a bit of time there, so that's good. So now if we come back to here, this should work. May not. You never know. Oh, it works. Great. Hang on. I've got a slide for that. If I can find my slides. Oh, no, there it is. Awesome. Okay. So pipelines, showed you the demo, showed you how to use LLMs. You guys can do it all, right? It's great. There's the pipeline and it works. Don't like my meme. Okay, that's fine. Not an Archer fan, I take it. Okay. Tough crowd. Tough crowd. Let's have a look at demo 2, right? I've got a new thing. How about we do something a little bit more, right? How about we do app service, we do key vault, and we do a storage account? Because let's face it, you're probably going to want all of that if you're going to build a web app, right? So what you do is you, oh, now I've just given it away. Let me go over here. Demo 1's done. Demo 2. Let's have a look at the README. Let's grab the LLM prompt. Who's feeling comfortable here? Yep. We've got one person who's feeling comfortable with LLMs. It's good. Rise against the machines is not going to happen here. Don't worry about that. So who here can relate to this one? Okay, that's good. That's good. Let's see how we go. It's done it. So the one good thing about LLMs, it's going to do it different every time. So eventually you might get something. You never know.
Sometimes using keywords like keying code, things like that, helps it a little bit.
All right. So I've got one I prepared earlier. This is what it gave me. We all know how to use it. We all seen it just magic it away. Who here is comfortable with this bit? Who here thinks this code's going to work?
Your object
Yeah.
key.
No?
Change your object ID.
What? Come on. The AI should have done it for me, right? Surely I don't have to think. Hang on. I'll put this up in. Let's have a look at in.
Line 12 is a bit sus. Professional opinion.
Yes. So here's the code with a bit of IntelliSense. So it pays to have the right tools, right? So who thinks this is going to work now? Nobody. Who wants to see this? No one wants to see. What? One person? Two people?
Can you press control and the tilde key? Just so we,
Control and the tilde key.
I don't know if it does it there. Can you go to problems?
Maybe you should ask it what's wrong with the code.
Okay, just wanting to good.
Although this said that does not have hello.
Doesn't mean it doesn't. It's not going to work.
Yeah, this doesn't work. So this is an example of, that if you're afraid of Arnold Schwarzenegger and the rise of the machines, don't worry, we're not there yet. Fine. You've got a couple of years.
It's using 2021 year that is still in preview.
It's onto it. So let's kick that off anyway, and I'm pretty sure you know the answer, right? Oh, demo 2. Look at that. It's green. Who believes me? Let's have a look at what's green, just in case. Oh, no,
Time in USD format or something in US format because it's
looks like it's doing the right thing. Going to demo 2. Yeah, let's create a release, eh? Do you think it's green? Actually disabled that step and ran it and then re-enabled it just to make it green. Oh, I thought somebody would get stuck it in on that one.
I did see the time was off, so
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not.
So yeah, no surprises here. We're going to very quickly see it's going to be all red, but that's okay. That's just part of DevOps, you know. If you're not failing, you're probably not really trying. So, got to experience a bit of pain. Unfortunately, I'm too impatient, so I'm just going to skip over that. Unless you really want me to. Oh. All right. So will it run? 60% of the time. It works every time.
You should live with that.
So, yeah.
If you generate it 3 times,
Maybe one of them might work.
2 of them should work. One
Oh, potentially, yeah. Oh.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't, blame Ron. All right, so now, for those of you that have not seen where this is from, this is mandatory homework. Who can tell me where this is from?
Idiocracy.
There you go, winner.
That's Idiocracy.
Oh,
One of the greatest movies of our time.
yeah.
Idiocracy is the best documentary ever made. Ahead of time.
Not people die.
That's
All right. So, yep, my magic answer, coded by hand. Use the tools, let them tell you an idea, and then you probably need to do the hard work yourself. So, where are we? Let's have a look at maybe a bit of code. So, we had the question before, why does ARM suck? I think that's how it was phrased. I could be wrong. So, to the answer. Have you seen ARM do that? What we have is we've got a variable that's an array of tag. And this type I've created up here. So now, after that, we're doing a bit of reduce. Everyone loves map reduce stuff, don't they? Functional programming is just so easy. No, it's not really, it's hard. But what we can do is, as add a parameter, we can pass in a typed parameter. So our tags are now coming in. And we can add as many tags as we want, we can remove them there. So now those tags can be assigned in the parameters for that Bicep template. Now, if you sort of step back away from the trivial demos, what that means is we can actually create some infrastructure Bicep files. Now, those core Bicep infrastructure files, they may be locked away in like a core repo that we put some good change control around. We get reviews and we use all the DevOpsy stuff to make sure all the teams involved understand changes to those structural files. And then we can actually allow those files to be used in pipelines. And we can have our dev teams just use parameter files against that build or against that Bicep file. So that means that teams can then spin up infrastructure and your controls are around the Bicep file, not around the ITIL horrible, painful gates that normally make it really terrible for everybody. I'm sure Ray's going to say that's not how ITIL works. It's probably true.
Protects change release or whatever.
Yeah, but put those controls around the core infrastructure files that are constraining how you do your infrastructure, not around the use of the infrastructure. You can get that separation here. It's really good. So now you can build 100 apps by passing in the appropriate parameters that change how things get created through the Bicep. And you can have conditions, if conditions, loops, and all sorts of fun stuff in the Bicep code. It's pretty simple still. Just got tags here. Let's have a look at the Bicep file. Some parameters that are coming through. I can use types to constrain the values that are being used. I can have things like the environment. And then from these large environment names, I can take some small names. I can create some small environment names. Why would I want to do that? Maybe I want to annotate some of the resources with some smaller characters. And you'll see that being used, hopefully. Not here. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I would have thought that. Oh, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry. Yeah. I click on the right value. You'll see how the app service plan name. So I've got a naming convention. I can put that structure into my naming convention because I'm using DevOps. All of these objects that I'm creating automatically fall into the right naming convention. I'm not mistyping things and making silly mistakes. So what's going on here? We've got a couple of settings for the web app. We've got some connection strings. We've got a web app, and that's a bit of code that I've written. And this module here, you know, I think technically you could probably do this in ARM-ish. It's really hard. This is really easy. So let's have a look at what is going on here. So I've created a module that's got a bunch of parameters that I'm passing through. Things like app settings, connection strings, IP restrictions, all sorts of cool stuff. And this is kind of like make your own territory, right? So all these parameters here. Now we get into the app service part. So we've got a web server farm. It's just using this module now to create the app service plan. And then the websites. Nothing too fancy there, right? Like we're just choosing the parameters out of Bicep. There's all this IntelliSense, it's already there. If you wanted a different parameter, you could come in here and there's a whole bunch that I didn't use. Choose your poison, go at it. Then a bit of configuration, just because I like it. Do I need to do this? Technically, no, but I like it to say the right things. It's just a bit of icing on the top. All right, so that's really that. I'm hoping so we've seen how to create these modules. Bicep parameters are really cool. I'm going to show you that release pipeline for number 3. Maybe I'll do that now. Find the right thing. Interestingly, environment 2, complete failure, as we thought.
I'm the Terminator.
Yeah, no Terminator here. Sorry, guys. It's a disappointment.
Maybe for Omni could fix it.
I should have opened Azure as a tab, to be honest. Who here knows what a progressive web app is? 2, 3, 4 people, 5 people, maybe. Who here knows that Azure Portal is a progressive web app? One person. That's cool. So Azure is
So up there.
Yeah.
On the top left.
PWA, Azure Portal. But if you get sick of it, you know, where's the button? You can go back. There you go. Let's just pop back in. All right. So resource group 2. Yeah, that stuff got in there. Anyway. Certainly not happy. It's all sorts of messed up there. Anyway. No web app. Storage account and the web server, but no web app. All right. Nothing up my sleeve. Let's go to release pipeline 3 and we can create a release here. So release pipeline 3, remember, it's just using what I showed you in VS Code. Show the parameters first, all those tags. And the Bicep code, which included this web app module. And this is my personal preference, is I like putting that in a V1. So let's have a look at V1. You can see resources. You can see it's got web app, and we've got a bit of web app Bicep there that it's calling into. And then it's making those things here. So, well, this will probably take some time. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's going fast. Who knows?
Maybe once it's done, you could, I think there's an option of export to ARM and then show people how many thousands of lines of ARM you'll get.
Yeah, and it doesn't work very well either, is something I'd definitely say there. It gets you a bit of the way there. There's also stuff that can convert ARM to Bicep, gets you a bit of the way there. Just forget it. Just start at Bicep. It's yeah, any other path just leads to pain. All right, so I'm just going to pretend that works, right? Because what's the time? 7:09. We all want to get out of here, and maybe just as a bit of a checkpoint, how are we all feeling?
Can you explain what a progressive web app plays for the majority of the room?
Absolutely. So progressive web app is what everyone should be building, you know, much to .NET 8's displeasure. It allows you to have WebAssembly artifacts, which are installed in your browser, downloaded, installed in your browser. And WebAssemblies are kind of just like assemblies from the old Windows days, if you like. It's an open standard. It's not a Microsoft thing. It's, I think, really run by Google. And it's executable code that runs in the browser. Now, this is where Blazor becomes amazing, right? This is truly the strength of Blazor. If you're using Blazor server-side, you don't get this. And this is where the difference lies. That executable WebAssembly in the browser, rather than writing JavaScript, I'm now writing C#. That's number one for me. Now that I have WebAssemblies, I can install that. So I install that with the progressive web app bindings. It allows me to, they're not 100% good. There's a little bit of code you really should do to make sure you sync with the latest version. There's a lot of problems there. They're not really designed for, you know, there's some nuances around them. But once you get over that little nuance, you've now got something you can install on the desktop. You can install that in your Android, install it in your tablet, you can install it in your iPhone. You're not going through the web store and you've got like a application-like experience built into your mobile devices. So in the past, I've built progressive web apps that people have installed. For example, the judges here in Brisbane have installed their court calendars into their Android devices so that they know what's going on. And you get a full web experience like a mobile app with APIs, refreshing data, large amounts of data. It's great.
Still locally cached data as well. So
You can cache, yeah, you can have offline experience, you control that offline. You get, mileage may vary. It gets complicated when you go offline. Or you can pretend it's an online app that you want to launch really quickly because there's no download for that payload because that app exists in the device.
Yes.
Just like a native app.
it's a good use case for viruses as well.
So I was thinking, security, I was thinking, it sounds like something I want to stand for.
That's the way. Shut it down.
Bypasses the store, so you don't have that first level triage of checking the nature.
What's the plan? How else am I going to get my virus on your phone?
It does have a web browser sandbox, so it's as good as the browser.
Yeah. It's
And we all keep our browsers up to date, don't we? Sure. Interface to them.
But no, the WebAssembly can run afterwards when the browser's closed.
No, WebAssembly, the whole point is that it is completely sandboxed. And basically it has, if you look very technically, the WebAssembly has only the instructions on how to manipulate memory. And then you can attach kind of like plugins, not really plugins, say, this is what extra things that you can do to application, like access to camera, access to webcam and things like that. But these are things that has to be defined ahead of time before you can execute the WebAssembly. And this is where the browser and the OS can catch and say, oh, you want to access these things? The user has to agree before you can even have that. They can try to use it without permission, but they literally don't have the connected bits to it.
I didn't know the maturity of that. I do recall when I looked into them that there was that those plugins or those linkages to access other elements, and there was a permission basis. But when I read the article, this is going back 3 or 4 years when they were first coming in, was users at the end, that's simple. All the apps ask for me to allow this, and I'll just click yes, and then the contacts flow off to another nation, state, and a few other things before you know it.
Yeah, sadly, that's already happening with regular apps.
Yeah.
And your car now too, so don't worry about that. It's not just web experiences. So I think most people's cars are now reporting your driving habits to insurance providers, which is great news.
I wanted to do that ages ago. Accelerometers.
So how are we feeling? So we're comfortable? Good. Questions? Concerns? We're okay? Because you're going to love this next part. So let's make it a bit harder, right? So to get an app going, we need a few more things. So what's the first thing we should do? We should absolutely put our secrets in code. Who disagrees? You're all wrong. So yes, I'm serious. Put your secrets in your code, in your Bicep. You might be saying, this guy has just lost the plot. How do we get no environment variables? Well, it's quite simple. Bake it all into your Bicep and your parameter file, right? No problem with that? Maybe. Security would be loving this, right? So secrets in code. How are we going to do the secrets in code? That's really the question, right?
Key vault.
We're going to use Key Vault. We're going to use Key Vault. So it's not as bad as what you thought. All those people are having heart attacks. It's all right. You can get off the floor. It's fine. It's fine. You can see here, we've got the secret is really just a reference to our key vault. So this is one of the best things about App Service, right? And I'll show you this. It's great. Yes, put your secrets in your code. Yep.
Just want to ask you a question before you bother to use the vaults on Azure. Do you use the local secrets manager that .NET has, for example, to test locally?
100%. You would never not do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 100%. So don't really put your secrets in the code.
Yeah.
It's just a bit of a thought we'd get from
Gotcha.
people. A little concern.
Yeah.
We're stirring a little bit here. All right. What am I really talking about? Well, this is an idea, right? So you've all seen App Configuration Manager. It's a great product, right? And you can bake all your configuration for your environment in Azure's App Configuration Manager. It's pretty good. You may not need to. You just may not need to. There may be a simpler way. So Key Vault's pretty good. Key Vault, you can deploy a Key Vault into your resource group. In that Key Vault, you can put all of your connection strings, all of your environment configuration can go into that Key Vault. You can then connect that Key Vault to your app service. That app service now has access to the Key Vault. The applications can see all the secret information, but we haven't put it in DevOps. We're not passing variables around. This may actually be a more secure way to write your code by putting your secrets in your code. And you can see you can keep your variables clear. It's just an idea. Is anyone doing this? Well, JK's already doing it.
On projects I worked on, they exactly that way. Yeah.
Having no secrets in their DevOps environment.
Having what would be environment variables in the keyboard. Yeah, what you just described.
Okay. So you're doing that. Great. Who here's putting their secrets in DevOps itself? I mean, I used to, 100%, right? But I don't anymore because I now use Key Vault. I could use Configuration Manager, 100%. I'm just being lazy. But when you have a look at it, it just keeps it simpler. Caveat is sometimes your projects will get bigger, and you know, when things get bigger, you might need to reassess whether it's appropriate. So let's have a look at secrets in your code.
And can I add that you can modify secrets without redeployment?
Yeah, that's a killer, right? Not running. I need to update that API key in my. Sometimes I may need to bounce app service to get it to reread, but I can just go to Key Vault, update, bounce app service, done. It's pretty cool.
That is client side one. I thought you had to still redeploy. That works on the server side.
Yeah.
Not the client side. So if your keys.
Well, you should never have any secret information in your client. Full stop. Never touch that.
Connection string client going back. Okay, doesn't it?
So the client should always call an API to retrieve the information it needs to display, or store, or use, or whatever. Treat everything in the client, treat it as compromised, 100% compromised.
Maybe so Stanford to call the API had a secret into it that allowed it to call the APIs. That's right.
But potentially you're sort of looking into your application's authentication and authorization on an API endpoint to allow it to get that information. And yes, you definitely need to get into that part. But think about it, before you get to being able to use authentication and authorization, you need to have an IDP. So, and Azure's got a great IDP. It's great. To use that IDP, and you're probably using OIDC Connect.
What's IDP?
Identity Provider.
Sorry, I was thinking just like a certificate, a secret where it's a certificate rather than authentication. So there's just a certificate credential goes there, agnostic of an IDP, and that was a trusted,
Just
just.
can't trust anything in the.
Well, sorry.
It's all compromised.
Dies and you can't update your certificate.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's. There are scenarios that you're talking about, but once we're talking about web apps, anything in the browser is compromised. Treat it all as compromised. It may not be, but imagine it is. It's just easier. What was I saying? Sorry. So let's have a look.
So for your key vault, do you have to configure the identity and access management, or does it natively know what it's allowed to?
Perfect question. Perfect question. Okay, we can do that one first. Let's have a look at the Bicep code. What do we need to do in the Bicep code? Type connection string time. So right here, this is probably the answer to your question. What we want to do is we want to provision managed identity. So we're giving our web app, well, just using this managed identity, we're giving that web app the identity. And then on the key vault, back to your question, what we want to do is we want to make sure that in the permissions of the key vault, we're giving the managed identity that the web app is going to run at permissions to look at those secrets. So we can see here we've got a user assigned managed identity. This is a key vault that I've written. So this is a module in Bicep that we're kicking off to the key vault. There's nothing super interesting there. Probably what we're interested in is the key vault policies and what we're going to do. And yes, I've written that. We can go and visit that. We're going to pass that principle of that user assigned managed identity over into this key vault policy assignment. So let's have a look at what that is. So see this? This is the object IDs. Yeah, okay, there's mine. Sorry. I didn't clean that up too well.
Principle of least privilege.
Yeah, I put all the code I write, I put me in. And access policies. You can see here. For all those objects in the object IDs, we're coming through. We're going to use the access policies and set it. Bicep doesn't like this, but if you don't do it this way, I find it breaks. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
So then that's an existing managed identity that has permissions to keep what you're assigning in your Bicep to.
Yes. So
web app.
Over here, I should have brought a mouse. I really should have. So up here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a user assigned managed identity.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're doing that now. Yeah. Okay.
And then, so that'll be deployed in that resource group. So that's sitting alongside our web app. And then the key vault's going to be deployed in that resource group as well. And we're going to assign those permissions, appropriate permissions. I think I've got a lot more than appropriate for this. Yeah, kind of gone all out. It's got them all. Sorry. At least, security person should go, hey. And this is the benefit of doing these modules, right? Because you can actually get your security team to be a reviewer of the changes in this code. You can get the infrastructure team to review the changes in the code. You can get your dev team to be a reviewer. And you can get it so all three parties need to agree on those changes before changes are made. So this is where that DevOps really provides that collaboration and assurance, and you can actually hopefully have a civil conversation around what should be done. That's maybe a dream, okay? I've got a dream.
And you can see who changed it.
You should not be able to secretly change it. So you can see here that with that managed identity, I'm going to have the Key Vault module, depending upon the creation of that first. I'm going to have the policies, have a dependency that the Key Vault's created before I start doing the policies. My storage module, so this will be interesting, right? My storage module has got a dependency that Key Vault module exists, right? Why would I have some sort of crazy dependency like that? Well, let's have a look at my storage module. Storage account, storage blob. Please be here.
Be like, okay.
So I've got another module I've created here to add the secrets to the Key Vault. So when I create a storage account, it's going to automatically put its keys in the Key Vault. What a good responsible storage account that is. So now that information's in the Key Vault, and like extrapolate that. So all of your other resources, you can do this very easily in Bicep. You can get it. So, and let's have a look at what's going on here, right? You can see here that we've got conditional statements. So I'm sort of saying, as one of the parameters I'm saying on this storage module creation, I'm going, do you want to add it to the Key Vault or not? You don't have to always. And then in the Key Vault, you can see here that we're referencing, and this is the keyword, the existing Key Vault. So we're getting a reference to that Key Vault. And now we're going through here, and for all the secrets in the secret objects, secrets, we're going to add them in. Easy, easy. So from that, you can sort of start seeing how the Key Vault then can become the core, as it should be, right? Like all the keys should be in the Key Vault. Why wouldn't they be? Lock the Key Vault down appropriately, give the appropriate access, not what I've done, but the appropriate access, and away you go.
By that, you mean as little access as possible?
Yeah, maybe my web app should be able to read the keys, not write.
Yeah, exactly what I mean. As little permissions as possible. Yeah. Okay, cool.
100%.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the logging around this kind of type of process?
What's the logging?
What sort of logs are generated?
Yeah. On button. No, it's Teams.
A secret in Key Vault.
You can download them all. Cool.
It basically just said that it doesn't give you the output that it's created.
But it's not going to put sensitive information in those logs. You'll see it in the activity log. To the right thing. And you can see, even though it's empty, we've had some stuff created in the past, and I may have deleted it.
Detailed Key Vault logs you had to send to Log Analytics or something else. But I'm just looking at what logs the app itself generates. It's part of that process. And so in the process of generating this thing, it's creating some logs. Is it just doing informational, or is it doing verbose?
So you're both correct. You're correct. So there is no logging in my code here. For the purpose of the demo, I've stripped that all out because I'm trying to keep it a little bit simple.
Yep.
But each of these things, you can attach it to your Log Analytic workspace, send that information to your Log Analytic workspace, and I strongly recommend that you do that. Set up all the diagnostics in the diagnostic collection, so you can actually see who's doing what action on what item. From a deployment perspective, you've got the activity log here, so you can see what deployments are being undertaken. And through that, you should have a pretty good coverage of what's going on.
And you can also use VNet to completely lock it out from internet. So you can have, for instance, only the web app being able to access it. So you wouldn't even be able to access Key Vault from outside Azure.
Absolutely possible. So what do I mean? Let's have a look at Key Vault. And you can see in Key Vault, we've got, do wrong, sorry. That's not going to work. They're both yellow. Oh, I'm not authorized. Now, let's fix that up. So any great Azure person just goes, I'll just have it all. And I'm surprised I'm not clicking all the other stuff too, even though I don't need it.
Just go global admin, be fine.
Yeah. That worked last time, but anyway. That's a bit of a foul. That should have worked.
Feature update.
Maybe just try just Damien Berry.
Maybe AI recognize that you're trying to do something.
Damien Berry. Is that you? Oh no.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, sorry. It's because I changed my email. Now, let's see if that works. All right, so we've got a bunch of keys stored in here. So this is where we're talking about IDPs. So each environment should have a different identity provider, right? So it should not be the same. It can all be identities like from that same tenancy. That's not a problem. But we should be standing up a different one for each environment, dev, test, prod, right? So in order to do that, we're going to have things like, which one am I going to choose? So the tenant will be the same, scopes will be the same. Client ID should be different. And so if we come in here and we show our secret value, I've just got a placeholder. Okay. Now, you can do it through Azure. You can put that in programmatically. You can get somebody to load that in manually. If you can automate it, you should. I'm being a bit lazy, just for the purpose of the demo. You get the meaning. But that's not the only thing, right? So I can have a secret called my new secret. And you can think about this as like, maybe it's not something as silly as this, but maybe it's got an initial value and you should update it to a value. So think about this might be a third-party API that might have an API key. We might not be able to automate that, right? Because that's come from a different organization. We might have to manually load that in. So this is how you can provision the environment. So you've got the stubs for all your secrets and keys and whatever, and you can just load that in. So how does that look in the web app? Let's have a look. App settings. All my app settings are in Key Vault. Almost all. I'd like all of them to be. And then what does that look like when you come and have a look at it? Well, I can't quite see it all because the screen's too small. There we go. So you can see here the secret name. You can see here the Key Vault name that it's coming from. And you can see that I can't actually see that secret value, which is good because I shouldn't be able to see that secret value unless I have permission to see that secret value. So now I don't have to worry about potentially that you could deploy that Key Vault into a different resource group. I don't need to worry about who can see what on my Azure resource now. So the question is, well, can the app see that secret value? So yes, it can. Actually, rather than me typing something in. I think I've got something I've prepared before. No, I don't. Oh, it's because I'm on the wrong demo. Sorry. Oh, it's lucky that worked. I think that's the one that we overwrote before. Oh, no. That's not like that. Don't touch that.
Maybe AI overloads want to censor it.
So you can see now that that's the secret, right? So we've got an API here. We've got something called app settings. We're loading that into there just in the same way that I've got my config settings. So my storage connection, quickly take a photo. Don't worry, I've rolled the keys, it's fine.
Was constantly thinking about the first slide that you shown where you were having an API call that returns back connection string, and I was constantly thinking, where are you going to use that?
Use away. So I've rolled these keys. So by all means, copy it down, have a go.
What's the third link you had on that thing? That was the AAD, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that's because if you're building a Blazor client-side application, you're going to need to expose the AAD configuration to your WebAssembly, because that WebAssembly is going to use that information to connect, get your OIDC JSON web token that's going to bring it back to the client. And then from the client, it's going to present that back to any of your secured APIs. So that client needs to get that information. So you need to give that information to the client. You don't want to hard code that information into the client because I'm sure you've got dev, test, and prod. So you're not hard coding any of this information or this environmental configuration into your apps. You want to dynamically retrieve that at runtime.
And with that, I'm inside group hogging some of the questions. Did I hear you correctly in the sense you were saying binding a different Azure AD to your environment, each of your environments?
Not an AD, a different app registration. Is that the right word?
Okay, app registration, that's fine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I just thought,
I always mess that word up. App registration. So that's where you go in and you register the app and you set all your callback and all that configuration. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, sorry.
So that should be separate. So I mean, a lot of people, they shouldn't. Some people use the same for all environments. That's a terrible idea. Like keep dev, test, and prod separated, even down to that app registration perspective. A lot of people look at it and go, it's really hard to get that information into my client. You know, if I'm doing an Angular or React or Blazor, you know, it's like, don't do that. Create an API for it, pull it back over the API. And that way, that API is in that environment. It knows the information from the environment because the app service has that referenced into the key vault where all that information is stored. And all that information can be provisioned up in your Bicep. All right. So potentially you might want to see how are we doing that in the code? I don't know, who wants to see that in the code?
Yeah.
Yeah. So AAD controller. So just a simple API controller. That AAD information is public. So there's no authorization there. Now, my recommendation is that you do put authorization on your connection strings at a very minimum, because that stuff shouldn't be out there in the wild. But for tonight, yeah, this is dodgy. App settings, you know, maybe you put a bit of wrap that up stuff in a bit of stuff. Up to you how you do that authorization. So for AAD, what we've got is we've got a class AAD. It's got all of these things. If it can't find, oh, what is going on? biting it, go away. If it, if it can't find it, it's going to set it to config not set. So that means that for whatever reason, if I've got some dodgy code somewhere and it's not matching up between the app service and the actual application that's being deployed, I'll be able to see that, hey, some of those settings are not matching up. They need to match. The key is Azure AD, but when you look at it in the Bicep code, it's going to be prefixed with that. There's a double underscore and then the variable name. And that's how I can then load it into that object. So I've got an extension here, and it's pretty simple. I'm just doing the bind command and I'm adding it back into my singleton, adding it as a singleton into my ISC container. Because, you know, that stuff's not changing, right? So singleton. Same, well, not exactly the same, but kind of similar. The connection strings, it's not quite as pretty. Got to load them one at a time. App settings, just using bind. And that's the object for the app settings and the object for the connection string. And then probably the last part that you might be interested in is how is that all getting wired up? Well, it's in this program.cs, right? So you can see here, got this extension method. I'm just calling it here. It's pretty simple code. All right, how are we traveling? Happy? Everyone's going to put their secrets in code now?
How hard was it for you to move from like this .NET type of environment to Blazor? Because it almost looks like C#.
It is all C#. Blazor is C#.
Oh.
It's part of ASP.NET Core. It's all baked in. How hard was it for me to go from MVC, for example, to Blazor? So much easier. You have no idea. And Razor pages to Blazor, so much easier. And you don't necessarily need to go to WebAssembly, although that is my strong preference. The server-side Blazor is far cheaper, less code required because you don't need to create APIs. You can do all your database access in your web page, just like the old days. Don't do that. do a bit of separation if you're trying to do that.
Like an ORM something.
Yeah, look, like back in the old .NET 2 days where they had that type data set and you just dragged and dropped it onto the web page and it just magically made everything for you, and then you have your data access code in your UI code, and wow,
the web forms
in the web forms, that's it. Yeah, so a blast from the past. Yeah, but you know, like you can write bad code with Blazor server side, which means you can write cheap code, so you can build stuff very quickly. May not be maintainable. If you write WebAssembly, Blazor client-side code, it's really hard to write cheap code. So it's probably going to be more maintainable. And then .NET 8 introduces just a whole nother space that I don't want to talk about because I don't like it.
Universal Blazor.
Yeah, it's a really good middle ground if you're not trying to build a progressive web application and you want something that loads really quickly without the heavyweight WebAssembly, so it can do the server-side rendering while it's downloading the client side. It's an option.
Would that be better for a server-side app with API stuff? So call it that middle ground.
My personal opinion, if you're going to build APIs, you're probably going to build client-side Blazor and WebAssembly. And if you've done all of this work to build that, you may as well make it a progressive web app, because it's very low effort to take that client-side Blazor and turn it into a progressive web app. They can then install on devices and PCs, and they think they can just, the Windows experience is, oh, it's like a Windows app, right? But no, it's a web page. They just don't realize. So to go to all that effort to have APIs and build the APIs.
Yeah, it's like a
kind of a no-brainer, just to do that little bit extra, and then you got something that's really good.
yeah.
I don't know.
It's like React or Angular. It's meant to run in browser, independent of everything, and then you have APIs to.
It's a bit like
Whereas Blazor Universal is like, it may run on server, it may run on browser, you have some control over it, but figuring out ways your actual latest data can be a bit of a brain gymnastics.
It's a cool idea though.
It exists in both, but you don't really know in what state.
It's at least a React compiler as well, so it's catching up with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, but the idea is cool, and I've seen a really good execution. But if you have something like Redux pattern, it becomes difficult to make it work with a hybrid approach.
Yeah, but if you want something easy, cheap, server-side Blazor is pretty good. Talking about Front Door though, if you want to put Front Door in with server-side Blazor, you are going to need Azure SignalR. So that's probably a catch.
Connection.
Yeah, because it uses that SignalR connection. So it's not the end of the world. It's pretty easy to do. You just wire it up. It's just another thing you need to deploy. You're kidding me. Seems like,
You explain again why you need SignalR with Front Door in between.
yeah, so only for server-side Blazor.
Oh,
For client-side Blazor, no problems, all good. Server-side Blazor uses SignalR to push those payloads down to the client. And so because everything's rendered on the server and pushed over that SignalR connection to the client and displayed on the client. It's a good technology. You can have like 10,000 users on a server. It scales well. It's nothing wrong with it.
I'm sorry, I'm missing something in the sense of if you don't have Front Door, server-side Blazor doesn't need SignalR to do the push.
Correct.
There's
Because it's using, sorry, it doesn't need Azure SignalR service. It's using SignalR, but it's using SignalR direct from the website or the web app. But because that SignalR sockets don't serialize across Front Door, you have to get that to the app a different path.
Yeah, and it happens every single time something changes on the screen or you press a button. The UI sends a message via SignalR to the server so that the server knows what happens.
Oh, yeah. So it's probably more than that. Whatever happens, that the socket doesn't think it's still connected to.
No, I'm not sure. But Front Door definitely doesn't support it. It's very high asked for feature, so eventually it'll come.
Yeah, probably because it's a binary stream, and it doesn't close us. It remains open for the entire duration of the application.
Yeah, I understand that bit. It's probably just why putting Front Door in between. There's an extra overhead or an extra bit of tech to make that continue to work? That's
To just to get around the front door, really.
through the front door problems.
To come more around.
Makes a lot of sense for Plaza. I think that's where he's going to.
So WASM's great because you're just using APIs. Everyone knows how to handle APIs. It quickly shows you some of this stuff in, so you can see here in the parameters, a few different ways that I've passed these things in. These things, you can see here, I've got my connection string that I'm passing in. It's got the values already set, references the key vault, and it's got the app settings there as well. In the Bicep, what would be interesting here is you can see here that I've started to get some built-in settings that I'm going to set, every time. Storage connection. Oh, I've done it again. I don't know if I've done that. Storage connection. We know that we're going to set up a storage account, and likewise, SQL Server, Azure SQL. You're going to set one of those up in your environment properly. Put that connection in there, or whatever other data storage you want to choose to use. And then probably you can see here how in the key vault, we're going to add a bunch of secrets. You can also pass these in from DevOps. Whatever I've done it again. Sorry. I don't know what. So, you could potentially have those variables if you choose in Azure DevOps, pass them through on a pipeline, make sure that's a secure parameter so it's not logged, and you can pass it through and populate it into key vault. Absolutely. My preference is if you can avoid any secrets in DevOps, avoid it. Should be in the environment, not in your DevOps tooling. All right. Who's had enough? Who wants to see some front door? Who wants to see a bit of front door? All right, we can go a bit faster. It's fine. Okay.
And we get kicked out of here.
When we get kicked out, 9?
The alarms start going at 8, so.
All right. How to deploy front door in 6 minutes. It's just like this, right? It's like, yeah. So exactly this. Who likes this show? Anyone?
I've never seen this.
All right. So what's front door? I'm going to go really quick here. It's a WAF. It sits on the edge, not in Azure resource groups. So that edge picks up stuff from POP. It could pass that down to resources behind it. So you can see here we've got the clients. They're connecting to the POPs. It's DDoS protection. You've got your domains and all that sort of stuff. You've got your WAF that sits in between. It's got caching, it's got compression, it's got a rules engine, so you can do all sorts of fancy stuff. It's got routes. Those routes route to origin groups. Origin groups have got a collection of origins in an origin group. There you go, that's front door. Didn't even take 6 minutes. All right, so when you create it, it kind of looks like this in the portal. Create the front door first. Then you're going to create the routes, and you're going to create the security profiles. Before you create the route, you're going to create an origin. Remember, origins go to origin groups. Routes have got DNS passed to origin groups. So you create an origin like this. You can see here, this is the website we just created. So that's an origin. You add that origin into an origin group, set up all sorts of things like probes to detect whether endpoint origins are alive and allow it to automatically fail over. That's the good thing about Front Door is it gives you immediate failover as opposed to Traffic Manager, where it's a DNS-based failover. It takes a little bit longer to operate. A route, what's a route? Well, a route's just like this abstract connection between your DNS to your origin groups and your origin groups down to your origins, right? So you set that up. Security policies. So if you choose to use Front Door Premium, not Standard, you can actually use the WAF and you can create security policies. All right. I thought that was bad enough. This is what happens next. We get to code. So setting up Front Door, this one's pretty easy. To install the Front Door, that's all the code you need. Doesn't do anything, but it's really easy code. Routes are a little bit trickier. Basically, what we're doing is just like I've talked about before, is connecting those origins to the origin groups, and it goes over multiple pages and connecting that to the domains. WAF policy. What does a WAF policy look like in Front Door? Kind of looks like this. This here is a WAF policy for client-side Blazor, potentially from a while ago, to allow DLLs. Of course, they've changed that now, but to allow DLL file types through the WAF. So when you're using WASM, you need to make sure those web assemblies are allowed through your WAF. A bit of other stuff down here below. You can see here that out of the box with the WAF, there's a default rule set. There's also other rule sets like bot protection rule sets. You can add these rules in, and
so can I make a shot in the dark? WAF means web application firewall.
Oh, sorry, I should have said that. Thank you, JK. Yes, web application firewall. That's right. Yes. And so with these default rule sets, there's lots and lots of rules. Not all applications are going to be able to run with all those rules enabled, especially some of your older applications, right? You're going to need to, from the .NET 4.5 days, you're going to have a whole bunch of things that WAF is picking up as a dangerous activity. You have to tune those WAF rules to allow it for that type of application. Things like cookies and stuff it'll pick up and get cranky on. So once you've got your policies, right, we want to add those policies into that route. Does that make sense? Policies being added to that route. So we're going to use the security policies to associate those domains with these policies.
Nice.
That's the Front Door part is more complicated than all of the other stuff I've shown you tonight. So
can you go to one of the instantiate Front Doors and just show them?
We can.
Yeah. So I haven't looked at the latest.
Absolutely. And because Front Door takes quite a while to spin up, here's one I've prepared earlier. So I've got like a external WAF and an internal WAF, and that's the external one. Well, I should have gone to the custom rules first, but anyway, there's a whole bunch of managed rules by default. And you can see here how my code has disabled this one. There's a lot of rules. And so you need to tune this appropriately. And I believe that this one has got custom rules. It might be the internal one. There you go. And you can go into that custom rule and you can see how it works. String, we're matching on that request ends with matches DLL dat and allow traffic. And admittingly, the UI is much easier to use than the code, but if you want to do DevOps, you need to do it in Bicep. And we can show you infrastructure. Or what was I doing? I was doing the external base. And you can see here, custom rule, allow that. And that's kind of the same stuff that you saw in the UI. Then the manage rules. Then I've got rule group overrides. Because I go, yeah, I don't want that one. So this is what you have to do.
So did you actually write that, or did you just set the?
I wrote that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There wasn't an export. They don't have a WAF. They don't have a front door export to ARM or anything like that.
I'm not sure, do they?
You can export the
Does it go out into ARM, not Bicep?
so there, like within the Bicep, if you do Control-Shift-P, there is there's an option to pass in your URI of the policy or any resource, and then it will basically dump it out. So that's one way to do it.
In Bicep?
Yeah, in Bicep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So if you just do Control-Shift-P and then type in Bicep, and then the one that you want is insert resource. And so when you choose that one, it'll basically say, give me your resource ID. And if you put it in there and you're authenticated to Azure, it'll basically go ahead and back out the Bicep code. Yeah.
I've just done it the hard way. It's like.
We knew that before tonight.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
So
That's the point.
you also need to be
You can always use ChatGPT.
yeah.
All right. And lastly, but not least, it's finished.
Austin Powers.
My idol. Yeah. Questions? I don't think that works.
Thanks, Damien. Yeah.
Very good.
Very good.
So next month we have Bernie. I believe that's still right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
What are we doing, Bernie?
Deployment stats.
One question.
Deployment stacks. And
Yeah.
it's going to change all the Azure that I know, and I'll have to relearn it all again.
What,
How much?
Sorry, David.
sorry, one question I have is, would you ever go back to MVC at all?
Never.
Never?
Never. I don't know if I can put a big enough exclamation mark after that. Never. Once you, I don't know, like, the question was about server-side Blazor or client-side Blazor. If you're coming from MVC, I think server-side Blazor would be simpler, like beyond all imagining. If you're coming from MVC, client-side Blazor would probably have a similar level of difficulty, and you're getting far more. So MVC is really hard compared to Blazor. Like, I cannot stress that enough. Just when you start writing the web pages, you'll be a fan.
I was just asking just quickly, when you're updating your applications, like, have you ever gone through the process of converting from MVC to Blazor and Blazor You know,
Yeah.
what were the trip ups for you? If
Well, so and not only MVC, right? So MVC is actually kind of easy. If you're going from React or if you're going from Angular, you can actually start putting Blazor components into React and Angular and compile them together. So not constrained to just MVC. MVC is far easier because doing Blazor bits in React and Angular, it's a bit of mucking around. What other trip ups? I think it's that initial piece of work. You kind of have to put the right shim around it so that it's all working together. That initial piece of code that you're going to do is going to be the hardest bit, and then your MVC pages are just going to fit in there. They can actually like as long as you're not coming from .NET Framework, and we're talking .NET Core. .NET Framework, it's a whole nother kettle of pain. But if we're talking .NET Core, they can actually coexist, right? So you can actually have those pages, and often you see Blazor applications with MVC pages.
Okay.
It's not. They coexist quite well.
Great, because I've put them all in .NET Core, so that's
Well, that's easy, yeah.
cool.
You're in a good space. If you've got .NET Framework, things are hard. Very hard. But if you're in .NET Core and you're using MVC, you should just be able to drop some Blazor pages in there. You'll have to just, I assume it's a rather large project.
Yeah.
So potentially put it to the side for a bit, create a brand new Blazor server-side application, add some MVC pages to that, and then look at how that's structured. Get that going first, and then bring those learnings back to the MVC application and try and get one Blazor server-side page going in there. That's what I would do.
Thanks.
Rather than diving into your existing application, because you're going to hit legacy quick.
Thank you.
But absolutely works. Just a little bit of finicking around for the first bit, and then you're fine.
Prototype.
Yeah, just prototype away, 100%.
Thanks, Damien.